Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Today, inshallah, we're going to solve Cambridge exam May-June 2024, paper 23. So let's start it. Question 1. Sodium chloride is liquid at 900 degrees Celsius. Which row describe the arrangement and the motion of particles of sodium chloride at 900? Of course, at 900, sodium chloride is a liquid, so the arrangement of particle will be random. It will not be regular. Regular is only for solids. And for the motion of particles, the particles move past over each other in a random way, so also the motion will be moved randomly, and the answer is D. Question 2. Hydrogen chloride gas reacts with ammonia gas to form the solid ammonium chloride. The apparatus is set up as shown, and after a few minutes, a white cloud of ammonium chloride is formed at the point where the two gases meet. We repeat the experiment using hydrogen bromide instead of hydrogen chloride. For how far along the tube does a white cloud of ammonium bromide forms? First, we will calculate the mass of hydrogen bromide. The molecular mass of hydrogen bromide will be 81, and for hydrogen chloride will be 36.5. So hydrogen chloride has greater molecular mass than hydrogen chloride. Of course, it will diffuse slower and moves shorter distance than hydrogen chloride. So this is the distance of hydrogen chloride, and hydrogen bromide will move shorter distance. That's why the white solid will be formed at point A. Question 3. Substance P and Q are both conduct electricity. P is a mixture of two different types of atoms. Q is made only from one type of atoms. So one type of atoms, that means Q is an element. B is a mixture of two different atoms. That means mixture of two different elements. That's why P is an alloy and Q is an element. The answer is A. Question 4. An atom of element R contains 15 protons, 16 neutrons, and 15 electrons. What is R? To know what is R, we'll go to the periodic table, search for the element number 15, atomic number 15, so it will be phosphorus, and the answer is B. Which molecule contains double covalent bond between two atoms of the same elements? So we need the double bond to be between the same element. Here, the first one, carbon dioxide, the double bond between carbon and oxygen, which are of course not the same element, so it is not carbon dioxide. Ethanol doesn't have any double bond. Ethene has double bond between two carbon atoms, as we can see here, so the answer is ethene, the double bond formed between the same element, two carbon atoms, so the answer is C. Question 6. Silicon 4 oxide is a covalently bonded compound. Which statement are correct? Silicon atoms form 4 single bonds in silicon oxide. Yes, this is correct. Each silicon atom is bonded to 4 oxygen atoms with 4 single covalent bonds. Oxygen atom form 2 double bonds. This is wrong. Oxygen form 2 single bonds in silicon 4 oxide. Silicon oxide has high melting point. This is correct. Silicon oxide contains 1 silicon and 4 oxygen. This is of course wrong. So the answer is 1 and 3. The answer is B. Question 7. The equation for the reaction of iron 3 oxide with carbon monoxide is shown. What is the percentage yield of iron when 16.8 grams of carbon monoxide react completely to form 8.69 grams of iron? So first we have 16.8 grams of carbon monoxide react completely with iron 3 oxide. First, we will calculate the number of moles of carbon monoxide, which will be the mass, 16.8 divide the molar mass of carbon dioxide, which is 28. So now we have the number of moles of carbon monoxide, which is 0.6. Then we'll make the ratio to the number of moles of iron. The ratio is 3 to 2. So we can calculate the number of moles of iron, which will be 0.4. Now we have the number of moles of iron, we can calculate the mass. Number of moles times the MR, or the relative atomic mass of iron, which is 56, will be, to find the mass will be 22.4. So from this reaction, we should have 22.4 grams of iron formed, but we only have 8.69 grams of iron, so the percentage yield will be 8.96 divide 22.4 times 100, so it will be 40%, and the answer is B. Question 8. What is the volume of 14.5 grams of butane at room temperature and pressure? First, we will calculate the number of moles of butane by dividing the mass by the molecular mass of butane. 14.5 divide 58, which is the molecular mass of butanes, to get the number of moles, which will be 0.25. The volume of 1 mole of any gas at room temperature and pressure is 24 decimeter cube. So here we have 0.25 moles. So the volume will be 0.25 times 24. So we will only have a volume of 6 decimeter cube, and the answer will be D. Question 9. Aqueous copper sulfate is electrolyzed using copper electrodes. That means here the process of electro refining. The 2 electrodes are made from copper. Which statement describe what happened during electrolysis? The first one, copper atoms gain electron at the cathode, and copper 2 ions lose electrons at the anode. Copper atoms never gain electrons. The metal atoms always lose electrons, so this will not happen. What happened that the copper ions gain electrons at the cathode, not the copper atoms. B, electrons move in the external circuit from the positive electrode to the negative electrode. As we can see in the external circuit through the wire, the electrons move from the positive electrode to the negative electrode, so statement B is correct. C, copper ions move through the electrolyte from the cathode to the anode. This is wrong. The copper 2 ions are positive, so they are moving toward the cathode. Copper is formed at the cathode and oxygen is formed at the anode. No, the anode ionized to produce copper ions to replace the solution, so also D is wrong. And the correct answer will be B. Question 10. Electrolysis is carried out on concentrated aqueous potassium bromide using inert electrode. We have potassium bromide, so we have potassium ion, bromide ions, and we also have H and OH from water because it is concentrated, so bromine will be discharged at the anode, and we have hydrogen at the cathode, so the answer will be A, bromine at the anode and hydrogen at the cathode. Question 11. Hydrogen, oxygen fuel cell, and gasoline are each used to power cars. Which statement describe an advantage using hydrogen fuel cell in cars in comparison to gasoline engines? Hydrogen is a non-renewable. Of course, this is not an advantage. Hydrogen is produced during the fractional distillation of petroleum. This is wrong statement. Hydrogen oxygen fuel cell doesn't release carbon dioxide, and this is the advantage of the hydrogen fuel cell. It doesn't release carbon dioxide, so this will not affect the Earth's atmosphere or the Earth's climate as the gasoline fuel does by making global warming. Hydrogen oxygen fuel cell need electricity. No, it generates electricity, so the answer is C. Question 12. Plant cells use energy from the sun for making photosynthesis. Which row describe and explain the energy change that occur during photosynthesis? Of course, photosynthesis absorb energy from the sun, so it's an endothermic process. And in endothermic, less energy is released in making bonds than the energy absorbed to break the bonds, and that's why the delta H is positive, so the answer is A. Question 13. 2 different experiments are done to find the enthalpy change, delta H, for each reaction. The temperature of each reaction mixture is measured at the beginning of the reaction and after 3 minutes. In the first experiment, the initial temperature was 26, as we can see here, and the final temperature after 3 minutes was 17. That means we have decrease in temperature. And in the second experiment, the initial temperature was 24.5 and the final was 40. So here we have increase in temperature. So decreasing in temperature, that means the reaction is endothermic, and increase in temperature, that means heat energy is released, and this reaction is exothermic. So experiment 1, in experiment 1, the delta H is positive and the reaction is endothermic, and in experiment 2, the delta H is negative and the reaction is exothermic. So the answer is C. Question 14. The reaction pathway diagram for an endothermic reaction is shown. U, V, and W are known energy values. Here, the diagram for endothermic reaction, the reactant at lower energy level than the product, and we want to know which diagram shows the reaction pathway diagram when a catalyst is used in a reaction. The catalyst increases the rate of reaction by decreasing the activation energy needed. So in the diagram, we have to choose a lower diagram with a lower activation energy. So here, of course, B is wrong. Reactant at higher energy level than the product. This is not an endothermic reaction. A and D, we have higher activation energy. Only C, we have a lower activation energy. So the answer is C. Question 15. Which process is a physical change? Burning, of course, burning is a chemical change. Reacting calcium carbonate with acid, also a chemical reaction. Melting an ice cube to produce water is a physical change, so the answer is C. Question 16. Contact process is used to convert sulfur dioxide to sulfur trioxide using vanadium pentoxide as a catalyst for this process. The forward reaction is exothermic. Which statement about this process are correct? The catalyst increase the rate of both forward and backward reactions. This is of course correct. Catalyst increase both rates. Low pressure increase the yield of sulfur trioxide. This is wrong because low pressure will shift the equilibrium to the side of more moles, which is the left side, so the yield of sulfur trioxide will decrease. So 2 is wrong. Number 3, low pressure is used to keep the cost low. That's correct. The process use only 2 atmospheric pressure because we have a good yield of sulfur trioxide at 2 atmospheric pressure and low cost. So statement 3 is also correct. A high temperature increase the yield of sulfur trioxide. This is wrong because the forward reaction is exothermic. So increasing the temperature, of course, will decrease the yield. So only 1 and 3 are correct, and the answer is B. Question 17. The equation for the decomposition of hydrogen peroxide is shown. In experiment, the total volume of oxygen produced is 100 centimeter cube, and the experiment is repeated using 1 gram of solid catalyst. All other conditions remains the same. Which row describes the total volume of oxygen and the mass of the catalyst at the end of the experiment? Of course, the mass of the catalyst will be the same. Catalyst is not used up during the reaction, so the mass of the catalyst will be the same, 1 gram, and the catalyst has no effect on the amount of the product. So of course we will have at the end also 100 centimeter cube of oxygen. So the volume of oxygen is the same, 100 centimeter cube, and the mass of the catalyst is the same. The answer is C. Question 18. Nitrogen reacts with hydrogen to form ammonia in the presence of an iron catalyst. The reaction is reversible. Which statement about the reaction is correct? Iron catalyst decrease the activation energy for only the forward reaction. This is of course wrong. It will decrease the activation energy for both reactions. When equilibrium is reached, the forward reaction has stopped. This is also wrong. At equilibrium, the rate of the forward reaction equal to the rate of the backward reaction. When the pressure change, the concentration of ammonia remains constant. This is of course wrong. Changing the pressure will shift the equilibrium because we have different number of moles on each side. So also C is wrong. Nitrogen and hydrogen never completely convert to ammonia. This is correct because the reaction is reversible. So the answer is D. Question 19. The equation for a redox reaction is shown. Here we have hydrogen peroxide react with potassium iodide, sulfuric acid to form iodine and potassium sulfate and 2 molecules of water. Potassium iodide is a reducing agent in this reaction because iodide ions loses electrons. Let's check that. Iodide ion here has a charge oxidation state of -1 in potassium iodide, and when it forms iodine, the oxidation state change from -1 to 0. That means iodide ion has lose electron, so it is reducing agent. Iodide ion oxidize by losing electrons, and it is the reducing agent. So it loses electron and it is the reducing agent. The answer is C. Question 20. Element E in group 2 in the periodic table. Which row describe element E and its oxide? Of course, in group 2, so element E is a metal and oxides of metals are basic oxide, so the answer is B. Question 21. Lead iodide is formed as precipitated in this reaction. When lead nitrate reacts with sodium iodide, we have precipitate of lead iodide and aqueous solution of sodium nitrate. So which method is used to separate lead iodide? Lead iodide is insoluble solid, so insoluble solid from solution can be separated by filtration. Which statement explain why sulfur has similar chemical properties to selenium? They both have the same number of electrons in their outer electron shell, and this is why they have similar chemical properties. Of course, they are in the same group and they have the same number of outer shell electrons. 23. Atoms of sodium, rubidium, and element Q have one outer shell electron. Some properties of these elements are shown. Here we have the melting point, boiling point, and density for the three elements, sodium, rubidium, and element Q. As we can see, the melting point is lower than that of rubidium, and the boiling point is also lower than that of rubidium, and the density is higher. So the trend of melting point of group 1, the melting point decreases as we go down the group. So element Q is below rubidium, and for the density increase as we go down the group. That's why Q has much higher density than rubidium. So Q is below rubidium in group 1. It is cesium. The answer is D. 24. Which statement about element in group 8 in the periodic table is correct? They all have a full outer shell of electrons. This is correct about group 8. They all react with group 1. No, they are inert. They will not react with group 1. They are all diatomic. No, they all group 8 gases are monoatomic. They are all liquids. No, they are all gases. So the only correct statement is A. 25. The electrical conductivity of magnesium is tested. Magnesium is then added to dilute sulfuric acid. A gas W is produced. Of course, magnesium is a good conductor of electricity. It is a metal, so we will choose a good conductor of electricity. And when a metal reacts with an acid, a gas produced, which is hydrogen. So the answer is A. Question 26. Aluminium metal is extracted from purified ore by electrolysis. In this electrolysis, the electrolyte is only purified molten bauxite, or it is purified bauxite dissolved in molten cryolite. This is of course correct. We use cryolite in electrolysis of aluminium oxide to produce aluminium, because bauxite decreases the melting point of aluminium oxide and of course decrease the operating temperature and the cost of the process. So the answer is B. Question 27. Part of the reactivity series is shown. Potassium, then X, calcium, then Y, then aluminium. Which metal are represented by X and Y? So we want to choose metal which is below potassium in the reactivity and more reactive than calcium, which is of course sodium, because all group 1 metals are more reactive than group 2. So the element which is more reactive than calcium, of course, is sodium, and which is more reactive than aluminium, it will be an element from group 2, magnesium. So potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium. This is the order of metals in the activity series. Group 1 metals are more reactive than group 2, than aluminium from group 3. So the answer will be X is sodium and Y is magnesium. 28. Some substances found in water extracted from a river are listed: plastic, nitrate, and oxygen. Which substances are harmful to aquatic life? Both plastics and nitrate are harmful to aquatic life. Plastics are harmful because it can be engulfed by many aquatic animals, and this will block the digestive system of these animals, cause death for these animals. So that's why plastics are harmful. Nitrates are harmful because nitrates increase the growth of algae on the surface of water, and this will block the sunlight. So the plant, aquatic plant underwater, will not be able to make photosynthesis and will not produce oxygen, and this will of course cause death of aquatic animals and plants. So we have 1 and 2 are correct, and the answer is A. 29. Car engines which use gasoline as a fuel produce oxides of nitrogen. Oxides of nitrogen are removed from the exhaust gases. Which statement about the formation or removal of oxides of nitrogen are correct? Gasoline reacts with nitrogen in the air to produce oxides of nitrogen. This is wrong. Oxides of nitrogen formed by reacting nitrogen with oxygen due to the high temperature in the car engine, not from gasoline. Gasoline contains nitrogen. This is wrong also. Nitrogen and oxygen react due to the high temperature to produce oxide of nitrogen. This is correct, as we've just said. Nitrogen monoxide react with carbon monoxide in the catalytic converter. This is correct. Catalytic converter convert the toxic gases like nitrogen monoxide and carbon monoxide to normal gases, nitrogen and carbon dioxide. So the gases nitrogen monoxide and carbon monoxide react together in the catalytic converter to produce normal gases present in air. Statement 4 is correct. So we have 3 and 4 are correct, and the answer is D. Question 30. Which structure represent a pair of structural isomers? So let's first count the number of carbon atoms. The compound number 1 have 6 carbon atoms, and compound number 3 have 6 carbon atoms also. Let's draw the structure. This is a straight chain. Hydrocarbon contains 6 carbon. The first one, compound number 1, and compound number 3 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have a methyl group on carbon number 2. So 1 and 3 are isomers to each other because they have the same number of carbon but different structure. Let's check 2 and 4. 2 have 7 carbon and 4 have also 7 carbon. So let's draw the structure. The first one, compound 2, CH3, CH2, 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 CH, CH3, CH3. And for compound 4, CH3, CH, CH3, CH2, 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 CH3. So here we have methyl group on carbon number 2. This is carbon 1, this is carbon 2, and here also we have methyl group on carbon number 2. So they are the same compound. They are not isomers. The isomer here only 1 and 3. So the answer is B. Question 31. Alkenes are homologous series of hydrocarbons. The table shows the name and the boiling points of the first 4 members of this series. Here we have the first 4 members of alkanes. Pentane is the next member of this series. Which row gives the molecular formula and the boiling point of pentane? Pentane, it has 5 carbon atoms, and in alkane the number of hydrogen is double the number of carbon plus 2, so it will be 5 times 2, 10 plus 2, it will be 12, and the molecular formula will be the molecular formula will be C5H12, and the boiling point will be 36. Because as we can see, by increasing the number of carbon, the boiling point increases. So pentane have much higher boiling point than butane. Butane, the boiling point is 0. So for pentane, the boiling point will be 36. Question number 32. Which displayed formula represent ester formed by the reaction of propane 1-ol with ethanoic acid? Propane 1-ol is an alcohol formed by alcohol contains 3 carbon atoms, and ethanoic acid contain 2 carbon atoms. So let's count the acid part and the alcohol part. The acid part is the part connected to the CO. Here we have 2 carbons, so this is ethanoic acid. And for the alcohol part, propane 1-ol contains 3 carbons, so this is the alcohol part. And the ester formed is ester A, which is propyl ethanoate. Question 33. Ethanol can be manufactured by fermentation and by catalytic addition of ethane to steam. Which statement is identified as an advantage of using one of these methods? Catalytic addition requires high temperature and pressure. This is not an advantage. Of course, this is the disadvantage because it has high cost. Ethanol produced by fermentation is extracted by distillation. That means it is not pure and we need to make distillation, and this is a disadvantage. Fermentation is a batch process. That means we have to clean the vessel and start the process all over again each time. So of course this is a disadvantage. The raw material in fermentation is a renewable source because it comes from a plant source containing glucose, and this is advantage. So the answer is D. Question 34. Which statement about carboxylic acid is correct? They react with alkali to form salt and water, and this is of course one of the characteristic reaction of acid, that it can react with alkali to form salt and water. With metal it will form salt and hydrogen, not with water. This is wrong. They react with metal carbonate to form salt and water and hydrogen. This is wrong. With carbonate it forms carbon dioxide. The general formula of carboxylic acid is CnH2n plus 1 OH. This is wrong. It will be COOH. So the only correct statement is A. Question 35. The structure of a polymer is shown. Which statement about this polymer is correct? Here the polymer contains amide linkage, so it is a condensation polymer formed from the 2 monomers here, as we can see, amino acids, and this is the amide linkage. Alkenes are polymerized to make this polymer. This is wrong. Alkenes make addition polymers. It's a polyester, it's a polyamide, and here is the amide linkage. It is an addition polymer. No, it is condensation. Polyamides are condensation polymers. Water is produced when the polymer is made. Yes, the 2 molecules are joined by removing 1 molecule of water, so the answer is D. Question 36. Methane undergoes substitution reaction with chlorine and complete combustion with excess oxygen. The condition for the reaction of chlorine and the equation for the complete combustion. The condition needed for the reaction with chlorine substitution reaction, we need ultraviolet light, and the reaction with oxygen, complete combustion, produce carbon dioxide and water, so the answer is D. Question 37. What is used to identify the end point of an acid-base titration? In acid-base titration, the color change of the indicator identify the end point, so we're using indicator. The answer is C. Question 38. 4 substances P, Q, R, and S are tested using chromatography. The same solvent is used each time. The table shows the distance moved by each substance and the distance moved by the solvent from the baseline. So here for each substance we have the distance moved by the solvent and the distance moved by the substance, and we have to calculate which substance are identical. If they are identical, they will have the same RF value. So we will calculate the RF value, which is the distance moved by the sample divide the distance moved by the solvent. For each one we will find for substance B 4.5 divide 10, and for substance S 13.5 divide 30 will have the same RF value, which is 0.45. So P and S are identical. The answer is B. Question 39. A substance is tested with 3 different reagents. Which row shows a result obtained with aqueous iron 2 nitrate? Iron 2 nitrate contain iron 2 ions and nitrate ions. So we will search for results of reaction of these 2 ions. With aqueous sodium hydroxide, iron 2 ions give a green precipitate of iron 2 hydroxide, and with acidified silver nitrate, of course here we don't have halide ions, so there will be no reaction, and acidified barium nitrate also no reaction because we don't have sulfate, because sulfate is barium nitrate is used to test for sulfate to form the precipitated barium sulfate. So if no reaction, we don't have sulfate, the only positive result will be with sodium hydroxide, a green precipitate of iron 2 hydroxide. So the answer is A. Question 40. A student carries out a flame test on sample. The flame color observed is a light green. Which ion represent the sample? Of course, barium ions have a light green color, so the answer is A. Now we've reached to the end of our exam. Like the video and subscribe to the channel to receive all the updates. Comment down below if you have any questions. Thank you for watching. Wish you all best of luck.